Hey, what's up? It's Jared with State of Tech. Today we're going to talk about the Apple Watch Series 3 and whether or not it is still worth purchasing in 2020. Now, Apple is still selling the Apple Watch Series 3, and I figured they probably would because it's still a great watch. It's very fast, it has a decent battery life, and it's still getting a lot of the things that the newer Apple Watches get as far as software goes. So Apple really found its footing, I think, with the Series 3. The first Apple Watch was sluggish and lacking features. The second one was a bit better, it got faster, but the Apple Watch Series 3 is where the Apple Watch really, I think, found its footing. And, you know, things like battery life were improving, performance improved a lot, and these days it's just a great watch for the price. So I wanted to talk a little bit about whether or not it is still good to purchase in 2020, considering there's the Apple Watch SE, and then of course the Apple Watch 6, and you can still find Apple Watch Series 5s for sale, and even the Series 4 in some places. So let's talk about what the watch can do. Well, these days it can run watchOS 7. The latest version of the Apple Watch software is available and runs on this watch, which is great. It means you're getting all the latest software features that have been available as Apple has continued to improve the platform. You can also run apps natively on this watch. It has the App Store. Of course, that's been available for a few years now, but you can actually download apps and run them on the watch without needing to have your phone there. So there are some apps that can run natively, and that's also a really neat feature that wasn't available in earlier versions of the software. You can measure your heart rate with the Apple Watch. Of course, that's something that's been available since this version, and it's worked out really well. And you can also go underwater with it as well. So if you want to swim, you want to use it as an active watch, the Apple Watch Series 3 is a great option for that as well. So let's talk about what the watch has before we dive into what it doesn't have, and then I'll give some closing thoughts and remarks on whether or not you should go with a Series 3 or an SE these days, because of the price difference. It's not as big as the price difference was last year between the Series 5 and the Series 3. So this watch has an aluminum case, so do all the other watches, but this only has an aluminum case option. It has the composite backing, which on the base of the watch where the sensor is, it is a composite material instead of the higher end materials that the other two watches are made out of. The Retina display has been the Retina display for a long time, so you're not really seeing much of a difference as far as the clarity of the image on an Apple Watch. The Apple Watch Series 3 still has that same Retina display that all the other Apple Watches have. It also has the Ion X glass on the top, so it's very protective. You know, I've accidentally smacked my Apple Watch on some things, and I've never had any problems with it breaking. I've never put a screen protector on my Apple Watch, and it shows very little, if no signs of wear after a few years of using. Now, I do typically update my watch every year and get the new version because I come here and talk about technology, but my watches still look new after a full year of use, and I use them at the gym. I use them while hiking. I use them while I'm out in my shop metalworking, and so my watch still looks great and brand new year after year because of that Ion X glass. This watch here has 8 gigabytes of internal storage for storing music and photos and all of that good stuff. As I mentioned before, it is swim-proof. It's swim-proof up to 50 meters, and that is the same as all of the other watches. It also has the first generation heart rate sensor inside of it. There is a second generation. We are not yet to a third generation, but the first generation heart rate sensor with the high, low, and irregular notifications is in this watch. You also get the altimeter. The altimeter is going to tell you, and you utilize this with other apps, third-party apps, but the altimeter is going to tell you basically your elevation. And so if you are on a hike, being able to know how far you climbed, how high you climbed, or if you're on a run, a lot of apps for running or biking or outdoor activities utilize the altimeter, so this watch does have that. It has emergency SOS, so if you need to make that emergency SOS call, as long as your phone is nearby and connected, because this is a GPS only model, you will get that SOS call. It has the digital crown. It has a speaker and a microphone. It comes in silver and space gray only now. It has Bluetooth 4.2, and it does have Wi-Fi, but only at the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. It doesn't have 5G Wi-Fi, and so if you do have Wi-Fi, you want to make sure that your Wi-Fi is running both in 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz so that you can get your Apple Watch connected to it. So before we dive into what it doesn't have, let me tell you about my website, learnwithjared.com. I have some courses that you might find interesting if you are into productivity and life optimization. I have a course on how to utilize Notion to organize your life. It's going to teach you how to build out a system to help you be more organized. I've got a link to that course down in the description below. Also, if you want to learn how to use manual mode on your camera, if you have a digital camera, a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, and you want to learn how to take better pictures, I've got a course for you down below as well. Many of my courses are free, so I highly recommend that you check them out, and I do appreciate you for doing that. So what doesn't this watch have? Well, it doesn't have a cellular option, and that might not matter for most people. The cellular option allows you to leave your phone behind and still stay connected using number share, so when you get a phone or a text, it goes right to your watch even though your phone is not nearby, and also notifications and stuff like that from the apps that you have installed on your watch would come through as well. Don't have that option with this watch anymore. It also doesn't have family setup. Family setup requires a watch with a cellular connection, and since you can't get the Series 3 with a cellular connection, you can't utilize it that way. I do have an older Series 3, and I tried setting it up with family setup just to see if maybe if you still were able to find a Series 3 with a cellular, if it would work, and it does not. So they obviously have blocked that in the software. You do need to have one of the newer watches to utilize family setup so that you can set up a watch for somebody else from your phone and control all of its settings and all of that stuff. This watch doesn't have an always-on display, but personally I turn off the always-on display to conserve battery life and get longer use. I do that. I've done that on every Apple Watch since always-on display has become a thing. It doesn't have a larger display, so this watch is a little bit smaller, and on the screen doesn't expand all the way out, so when you're viewing things like maps or photos or whatnot, the image is kind of squished up in the screen a little bit, and it's not utilizing the entire screen real estate that's available, so it doesn't have that larger display. It doesn't have fall detection, it doesn't have noise monitoring, and the digital crown doesn't have haptic feedback, so when you rotate the digital crown, it doesn't have any feedback or any feeling to it. It doesn't have a compass, it doesn't come in any extra color options other than the two that I mentioned earlier, and it doesn't have larger case sizes like the 44mm that's available. The largest is 42mm, and the 42mm feels smaller because the screen does not go all the way to the edges like it does on the newer Apple Watches. So is it worth it? That is the big question, and 80 is the magic number. $80 is the difference between the Series 3 and the next watch that you can buy brand new on the market, which would be the SE. The Apple Watch SE we're going to talk about in another video, so if you want a good side-by-side comparison, make sure to subscribe to the channel because that's coming next. But the difference between the base model Series 3 and the base model SE is that $80. Now the Series 3 also has the smaller case size, and current bands watch straps are not compatible. So these new Apple Watch straps that have been coming out, and a lot of the Apple Watch straps that are for the 40 or 44mm cases are not going to work on the Series 3. The Series 3 is also likely getting near its end of life on software updates. I'm sure that Apple will probably continue on for a few more years, being that it is still being actively sold, and they're not going to sell something here in 2020 and not give software updates to it in 2021. It probably won't be on the market next year, the Series 3. They'll probably figure out something else, and then eventually, maybe a year or two later, you'll stop getting software updates. But that's not really a big deal because there are iPhones that have not been getting software updates for like 4 or 5 years that are still running strong. So I wouldn't worry so much much about that as being a deciding factor, but just know that when they stop giving it the new versions of the software, like Watch OS 8, 9, 10, and into the future, you're not going to be getting those new features anymore. When you do get a software update on the watch, it's also a really slow process to run that update. On this watch, it is much slower than running the software update on the newer watches. I don't really know why, because the SE also has 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, so I don't see much of a difference there. Maybe it is the difference in the Bluetooth, being the older version of Bluetooth that this watch has. I'm not sure. I just know running a software update on a Series 3 takes forever in comparison to the newer watches. Newer watch models might be too large for you, and so a smaller watch size like the 38 millimeter might be something that you want. If you want something smaller and discreet, even the 40 millimeter watch is getting a bit larger. Those are the watches that I purchased for my kids so that we can utilize the family setup and I can communicate with them. And I wish that the watches were a little bit smaller, but they're not. The 38 millimeter being available in the Series 3 might be for you if you want something smaller. So closing thoughts, $80 is still a lot of savings between the SE and the Series 3. Definitely make sure to check out that video I've got coming up soon so you can see more of a side-by-side comparison to help you decide whether that $80 is worth it. But $80 is still a lot of savings, and Apple products run for years beyond software updates, just like I talked about already. But make sure to stay tuned and click that subscribe button, because here are some watch videos that we have coming up. We have the Series 3 versus the SE. I have a full Apple Watch SE review coming soon. I have an Apple Watch SE review coming soon from the kids' perspective, because my kids have been using their Apple Watches now for a couple of weeks and have been utilizing them, and I wanted to talk about it from a parent perspective and also from my kids' perspectives as well, and kind of give a review, so that might be interesting to you. And then I have lots of Apple Watch tips videos coming up soon for us as adults and how we would use our watches, and even how I'm utilizing them with my kids and the different features that are important to them. So a lot more coming soon. Make sure to click that subscribe button, hit the like button if this video helped you out, and I hope to see you back in one of our next videos. Take care.